By the middle of the 19th century, English art, like the art of most nations at that period, was looking rather old and tired. And as often happens at such moments, a group of young painters, very young painters in this case, got together and determined to do something about it. They called themselves the Pre-Raphaelites. The main trio was still art students: Dante Gabriel Rossetti, William Holman Hunt, and the youngest and most precocious of the three, John Everett Millais. Very few English painters have produced so many unforgettable pictures so early, well before he was 30. And this is the most famous of them, Ophelia, painted in 1851. Shakespeare was a favorite source for 19th century artists, and as a young man with a taste for romantic melancholy, Millais was not surprisingly drawn towards the death of Ophelia, described so beautifully in the 4th act of Hamlet. There is a willow grows aslant a brook that shows his hoar leaves in the glassy stream. There with fantastic garlands did she come, of crowflowers, nettles, daisies, and long purples, that liberal shepherds give a grosser name, but our cold maids do dead men's fingers call them. There on the pendant boughs, her coronet weeds clambering to hang, an envious sliver broke, when down her weedy trophies and herself fell in the weeping brook. Millais has it virtually word for word, or rather image for word. The willow with nettles entangled, the reflecting stream, the crowflowers, water crowfoot, the long purples, purple loosestrife, and he's added wild roses, perhaps because her brother Laertes called her the Rose of May. Also a robin, which she sings of earlier in the play. And her fantastic garland includes poppies that symbolize death, towards which she floats, singing as though in joy, her arms outstretched as if waiting to embrace the one she loves. At one point, Millais added daffodils to get some yellow into the picture, but the poet Tennyson persuaded him to paint them out for botanical reasons. Also a rat, which he likewise painted out because it looked like a lion. The Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood had been founded 3 years earlier in 1848, and this is the first picture Millais painted as a member of it. He was 19, and he chose Keats's poem Isabella about doomed love. The idea of the Brotherhood was to emulate the values in Italian art before Raphael, values of sincerity and truth to nature. With Raphael, so the artists felt, a rot had set in. But Raphael was the god of art in the 19th century, so they kept the name of the Brotherhood secret. They signed their pictures P.R.B., which provoked curiosity and some not very funny jokes. Did the initials stand for Please Ring Bell? And so on. The next picture Millais exhibited, which is here in the Tate, demonstrated more strongly the Pre-Raphaelite belief in truthfulness and in meaning. He painted Christ in the house of his parents, positively laden with symbolism. The young Christ has cut himself on a nail. A drop of blood has fallen on his foot. His mother is already the grieving virgin. The painting fell foul of the critics, not because of these rather coy allusions, but because the picture was too truthful to life. Joseph with bare feet and dirty fingernails, the clothes of poverty, muck on the floor, it was outrageous. Raphael would have cleaned it all up. Millais took care not to offend public opinion again. He was too ambitious for that. But this truthfulness to the real world remained. Just before Ophelia, he returned to the theme of tragic love with Mariana from Tennyson's poem. She only said, "My life is dreary, he cometh not," she said. She said, "I am aweary, I would that I were dead." The sensuality of Mariana far exceeds Tennyson, and it's enhanced by this intense blue. Here's Pre-Raphaelite colouring at its most splendid and dazzling. They achieved this bright sparkle by applying pure colours to a white background that was still wet, painting it area by area like an early Italian fresco. So too the brilliant greens and bright flowers of Ophelia. But so also, of course, the immense time it took Millais to paint it. It took him weeks and weeks by the banks of a stream near Ewell in Surrey, painting for 11 hours at a stretch. He wrote wearily about bulls in the field and a pair of swans who churned up the water weeds just as he was painting them. The figure of Ophelia gave him further problems. The model was Elizabeth Siddal, later to marry Rossetti. Millais painted her not in the stream, but in a bath in his studio the following winter, keeping the water warm with lamps underneath that were never hot enough, and poor Miss Siddal was ill for weeks. More surprising is how Millais managed to unite the summer stream and the winter bath convincingly in one picture. Millais was to pursue this rich vein of melancholy for several more years. In 1856, he painted The Blind Girl, and once again, the poetry of sadness is sharpened by this brilliance of colouring, and by a minute attention to natural detail. In the same year, Millais painted another mood picture, Autumn Leaves. The end of the day, the end of summer. The wistful expressions of children as if lamenting the end of childhood and the departure of sweet innocence. But the artist himself was growing away from these youthful visions. As he told the wife of a patron, "People had better buy my pictures now when I'm working for fame than a few years later when I shall be working for a wife and children." Photographs record the change in Millais. He grew wealthy, famous, sought after by society, and in 1885, the first British artist to be made a baronet. His later fame rested on pictures that tugged the Victorian heartstrings as well as their purse strings, like Bubbles, bought by Pears, the soap manufacturers, and used as an advertisement. Millais was furious, but it was poetic justice. Pears had only applied the same commercial principle that had guided the artist's own later career. So in the end, a note of lament in the young Millais' work becomes our lament for the passing of so great a talent. And yet, when all's said, Millais gave us more in those first 10 years than many an artist in a whole lifetime of sincerity.